giving your pitcher who's out there also opportunity to compose themselves. If they can't do that, then okay, make the call. I don't know. What's your take on it, Ed?
Like Blake said, he was rolling. 5 in the third innings, 2 hits. He had 9 strikeouts, 73 pitches, 48 for strikes. So as he said, he was rolling at that time from a number standpoint. And you and I and millions of others that watched the game could see that Blake Snell was in an absolute zone, as he says in his article on the Players Tribune. But then Kevin Cash comes out. I don't know if it was a call from the analytics department up top in Arlington that night. That's from the Tampa Bay Rays that said, okay, I think you need to go ahead and get Anderson in there. You need to get him warmed up. We need to get Blake Snell out of there. It's been 5 in the third innings. It's time to make a switch. Even though Blake was absolutely destroying, he was slaying the Dodgers that night. Wasn't he, Joe?
He was.
Yeah.
I thought the Dodgers were done.
Yeah. My goodness. Again, at that point, he only given up 2 hits through 5 in the third innings. And as he said, quote unquote, he said, when he saw Anderson, he said, dude, please don't give up a hit right now. Just get these guys out. Whatever you do, don't give up a hit. That was his mentality when he saw Anderson. Before that happened, he said, quote unquote, these dudes can't touch me. Before Anderson, to going to that part like, oh my gosh, please don't get a hit. I can't give up a hit right now, because his mind is back behind him where Anderson's warming up instead of where he needs to be on the hitters. That really messed his psyche up.
Yeah, it really did. So,
but Joe, in the article, he did not lay the blame on Kevin Cash. He stayed above board in what he said as far as Kevin Cash is concerned. He was like, basically, Kevin made the decision on his part, and he had really no ill will toward him, even though at the time he was really ticked off because he still had enough in the tank to lead Tampa Bay to that victory in a possible Game 7, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, and Blake Snell says, it's his part. It comes down to his doing and not bringing that performance, toward at the end, which then caused the decision of then being taken out of the game. And I do admire Blake Snell for not throwing Kevin Cash, under the bus or giving him that, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like giving him that blame, Yeah. So putting that blame on him, on Kevin Cash, but he's rather putting it on himself. So I do admire, Blake Snell for that, but I think it takes a little bit of both. In the, in the end of it, you're put yourself in that player's, moment, in that perspective. I hadn't thought about it that way until reading Blake Snell piece in his article about it, and his take was like, oh, well, that's a different perspective. That's another angle that I didn't think about as well. So, that gives you a little bit of both sides. And if I were him, in this, in a pivotal moment like that, yeah, I would have messed with my mind, definitely. And me, if I'm rolling out there and striking these guys out and on top of my performance, and then I see someone out there where I see myself, not even imagining being out of the game, and it's, the 6th inning, and you have someone out there warming up, then it's like, okay, well, now what are you planning to do? So, and then of course, then from there, it's probably going to more than likely go downhill if I can't get myself together.
Yeah. But so we're coming up on the 4-month anniversary of Game 6. That was on October 27th. So it took some time for Blake to kind of process things after the game. It's really difficult at that moment because he's got so many thoughts and feelings and so many emotions. It's so emotional at that time, Joe. They're on edge because it's Game 6. You have to have this baseball game to force a Game 7. Otherwise, if you lose this game, clearly it's over. And it was for the Tampa Bay Rays. But now that he had time to sit back and kind of contemplate what actually happened, his thoughts kind of changed to what they were in the heat of the moment.
Right. And you're going to have some time to think it,
Yes.
And put yourself in that place and analyze it and see, okay, this is what it is. And this is what I take from it. But the one thing you mentioned earlier, Blake Snell is now with the new team. He's with the Padres.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's a new fresh start for Blake Snell. No Kevin Cash or anything like that. And Snell, they're not going to have that encounter as far as player and coach go. So that, they're going to be able to move past it. If at any moment there was a little bit of a situation there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, a little bit of friction there. But he's with the Padres and another contending team. So I'm excited to see what he's gonna bring to the team, toward the organization, and having a new fresh start. And hopefully we see him, if not as good, better. But don't shoot me with daggers if I say this, that when he was with the Rays, because given he is with the Padres and it's right, against the Diamondbacks.
Yes.
Division rival, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I am excited to see him with a contending team going into the 21 season.
Me too. I want to see what Jace Tingler, the manager, can do for the Padres, what he does with all these new pieces he has, and a newly minted, paid Fernando Tatis Jr. at the shortstop spot. It's a really good baseball team, Joanna, and I think they can contend with the Dodgers. Let's see if they can stay stride for stride with them. They meet them 18 times this year, and they met them obviously in the playoffs last October. So they got a taste of playoff medicine, and they like that taste. So they want to definitely get back to there and make a run for a championship in San Diego. And I think they have the pieces, but just can they continue? Can they keep up with all the weapons that the Dodgers have at their disposal? Because if the Dodgers get off to a hot start like they usually do every single year, and if you don't keep pace with them, then it's over. They're going to race out. They're going to, again, race out to a 15, 18-game lead, and then it's ball game. Season's over. Unless you're fighting for a wild card spot in that second spot. What? Oh, why?
That season hasn't even started. It can't be over yet, Ed.
I know, but they're so good, Joe. You know it, and I know it. It's not hard to tell. It's LA. It's the Dodgers organization. They do it. They've done it 7 years in a row, winning this division.
I thought we got past this. I thought we were moving on.
Well.
Oh, goodness. No, I'm excited of course, you can tell, for some baseball. Spring training is here. Baseball is in the air. Me and my good friend Eileen cannot wait to meet up and catch a game and some baseball. Of course, being safe and practicing social distancing and safety protocol measures with COVID. And, but I'm just excited. Baseball is back.
Yes.
We're down to our last part of the show. I know we talked a lot of baseball, but I'm going to go ahead and move on from baseball now and Dodger talk.
Do you really?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to go ahead and get into a couple more sports. I want to get a little bit into basketball, touch on a couple of subjects there, and then I want to get into some boxing that happened over the weekend. But first, let's touch on basketball. NBA. So we have the Nets, Brooklyn Nets, and Steve Nash and company.
Yes.
Are on the road and are undefeated. 5-0. We saw them, starting off the season, how great of a package that they all are, not only the coaching staff, but also the players. They started off a little bit rough. Of course, you have to, you're going to have to have a few rough games before you can see everyone's chemistry, how everyone, comes together and all of those dynamics work out. Now they've seemed like they've got it together and they are on the road and they are on fire.
They went out west and won all 5 of those games, including a win over the Phoenix Suns and 2 straight wins over the Lakers and the Clippers. On Sunday night, they beat the Clippers to end that road trip, and they are clearly the best team in the East, if not arguably one of the best teams in basketball, if not the best team in basketball. They're 12-4 against teams over 500, Joanna, this year. So they beat every contending team in the National Basketball Association this year. And that's impressive to go out west and win all 5 games. And they beat Golden State, they beat Sacramento, Phoenix, and the 2 LA teams. And now they go back home with absolute confidence. And a lot of those games, they didn't have KD with them on that trip because he had a hamstring injury. He missed the Suns game. He missed the Suns game and the 2 LA games, and they still won them. That just goes to show how impactful James Harden and Kyrie Irving and Joe Harris and Bruce Brown and everybody, TLC, everybody on that basketball team, they're coming together, Joanna. They're figuring themselves out. And we talked about that, about building that chemistry. We knew it would take some time once James Harden got there for him to get the feel for them and for them to get the feeling for him. But now you see it's coming together and they're deadly. And ever since James Harden got there, he's leading the league in assists. He's unselfish.
That was the best move for Harden, like ever. And I think he's back, or I'm seeing Harden come back to the player that he was a few seasons ago. You just said it. He's just been something else now with being with the Nets, and it's going to only increase. We're barely even halfway through the season, not even halfway through the season, Ed.
No, it's unbelievable. James had 37 points that night. He was 4 for 9 from 3-point range, 37 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. This is against the Los Angeles Clippers. And Kyrie had 28 points and 8 assists. Bruce Brown had 13 points. Joe Harris had 13 points. DeAndre Jordan off the bench had 13 points. So again, everybody is contributing to the success of the Brooklyn Nets, and that's why they are where they are, one of the best teams in the NBA, and they're getting more dangerous as games go on. And once KD comes back, if all three of those guys can play consistently down the stretch, they're 19-12, I believe. They've got 41 more games together. How much better will they get before they get to the end of the season once playoff time comes around? There's so many questions about, Brooklyn can't play defense. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the league. But the other night against the Lakers, they held them to 98 points at Staples Center. That defense is not that bad. If they can hold LeBron,
is like one of the best.
Yes, if they can hold LeBron and the Lakers, even though they were minus Anthony Davis, you can hold them to under 100 points at Staples Center. That says something about your defense.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. That's where I'm going with this next, Ed. They went out to LA. They beat not only the Clippers, which are also not a bad team at all, and the Lakers, the reigning champs. So what is this, has even more to say of who the Nets are and can be even further going into the season. So, can you imagine just in the playoffs or going into the NBA championship, seeing these two teams go head to head in this type of environment?
Oh, it will be great. Hopefully this year it will be not a bubble situation, Joanna. If that was an NBA Finals preview on Saturday night or the other night when the Lakers played the Nets, that will be a great series. Traveling cross country between Brooklyn and LA, that would be a fantastic series, especially if Anthony Davis is healthy, if Dennis Schroeder is healthy for the Los Angeles Lakers. You would hope to have all pieces on deck for the NBA Finals. Whenever that comes around, they still have to figure out the second half of the season once the All-Star game is over and they get to all these rescheduling of games. But if those two teams meet up in the NBA Finals, that would be a great series, wouldn't it?
I'm dying to see that.
Yeah. KD, Irving, and James Harden against LeBron and AD and Schroeder and everybody they have there. That great defensive team, that'd be a great series if that's what it comes out to be.
I'm excited. I like basketball. I typically tend to be more in tune in basketball after the All-Star game because now it's even more high-end and more intense because now it's not that it didn't count, at the first part of the season, but going into the second, it's like every game is even more important because now you're that game, whether you win or lose, determines whether you're in the playoffs or not and have a chance to get into the finals.
Yeah, it's just like baseball. Right after the All-Star break, after the All-Star game in baseball, it gets really serious then. I know we know there's some dog days in summer with a lot of games. You're just like, oh my gosh, can we get this series over and move on? But as the season goes on, it gets more tight when these playoff berths come on and, everybody's trying to jockey for positions for seeding in the playoffs. But it should be a great second half of the season once we get through the All-Star break. And, some people are down on the All-Star game. Some people do or don't want it, but it is what it is. Adam Silver made the decision to have the All-Star game. But once we get through that, it's going to be a mad rush to the playoffs. I'm really looking forward to this.
I am excited. So I do try to catch the Nets when I can because, of course, it's has home roots, of course. It's kind of hard not to. So I'm really happy to see Steve Nash succeeding in his new role as a coach.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the questions. Like, okay, how would Steve Nash take to his very first head coaching